I was 62, widowed 2 years prior, and finally looking forward to the quiet retirement my late husband and I had spent 40 years working for. My entire adult life, I'd put my family first, sacrificed my wants, and worked nonstop to keep everyone comfortable and secure. I'd spent decades catering to my son Ethan's every need, bailing him out of mistakes, and covering his costs, even as he grew into a fully grown adult with a family of his own. I'd long put my dreams on hold for him, but that all changed the day I got his unthinkable text. I was wrapping up simple household chores on a calm weekday afternoon when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I expected a routine message from my 28-year-old son Ethan, who usually texted me for small favors or quick updates. But when I unlocked my screen, I was stunned by the bold, demanding message he'd sent out of nowhere. With zero warning or prior conversation, "I am leaving my career. You will support the whole family while I chase my dreams." No greeting, no explanation, no warning. Just a blunt, demanding ultimatum, as if I was born to be his permanent financial safety net, a endless funding source for every fleeting whim he decided to label a dream. My husband Thomas had passed away 2 years prior after a long battle with chronic illness, leaving me with a modest retirement fund, a fully paid-off suburban home, and a lifetime of hard-earned savings meant exclusively for my twilight years. We'd spent 40 years working overtime, cutting costs, and saving diligently to build a peaceful retirement for ourselves, never once imagining we'd be forced to financially sustain a fully grown, healthy adult child. Ethan had always been coddled, spoiled by years of my selfless sacrifice. From the moment he graduated college, I'd bailed him out of every poor decision, every lazy choice, every moment he refused to push through adult responsibility. When he grew bored of his entry-level corporate finance job after just 18 months, I'd covered his 6 months of rent while he figured out his passion. When he splurged on a brand new luxury truck he couldn't afford, I'd stepped in to cover his monthly loan payments to save his credit score. When he and his wife Mia decided to start a small family before they had stable savings, I'd paid for their nursery furniture, their grocery bills, and even their toddler's daycare fees for over a year. For nearly a decade, I'd enabled his entitlement under the guise of maternal love. I'd told myself family comes first, that a mother always supports her child, that patience and grace would eventually teach him gratitude and independence. I'd ignored the red flags, his consistent refusal to budget, his habit of quitting jobs at the first sign of stress, his endless excuses for why he deserved to pursue his dreams without sacrifice, while I spent my days scrimping and saving to cover his lifestyle. Every time I gave in, every time I covered his bills, every time I sacrificed my own plans for his comfort, he grew more entitled, more ungrateful, more convinced that my lifelong hard work was his birthright. Now, at 28, Ethan had a stable, high-paying corporate career with full benefits, paid time off, and consistent raises, a job countless young adults would beg to have. But it was boring to him. It required routine, effort, and discipline, and he'd grown tired of the daily grind of adult work. His new fleeting dream becoming a full-time freelance travel content creator. No structured income, no guaranteed pay, no steady benefits, just a vague and proven passion he expected me to fund entirely. What made his demand even more outrageous was the weight of his request. He wasn't just asking me to support him, he expected me to financially sustain his entire small family, his wife Mia, their 3-year-old toddler, their monthly rent, car payments, utility bills, daycare costs, and all their daily living expenses. He wanted to walk away from his stable career entirely, no backup plan, no savings, no side income, and force me to drain my retirement so he could travel and film videos for fun. For 2 years after Thomas passed, I'd clung to maternal guilt. I'd told myself Ethan was grieving too, that he needed extra support, that I owed him every bit of help I could give. I'd put my travel dreams, my beach retirement plans, my quiet, peaceful life on hold indefinitely, just to keep his family afloat while he chased temporary comfort. But that guilt had slowly faded, replaced by clear, unshakable clarity. My retirement was not a funding pool for his irresponsible dreams. My hard work was not a sacrifice he was entitled to exploit. I stared at his text for a long moment, no longer feeling the familiar tug of obligation, no longer rushing to make excuses for his selfishness. For the first time in my life as a mother, I chose myself over my child's unreasonable demands. My fingers moved steadily over the keyboard, no hesitation, no apology, no softening of the truth. I typed a short, firm, unemotional reply. This is not my responsibility. I hit send instantly, flipping my phone face down on the counter before I could second-guess my choice. I severed the cycle of self-sacrifice that had defined my relationship with my son for nearly 30 years. No more endless giving. No more one-sided support. No more sacrificing my golden years for his lazy ambition. I stood up straight, my shoulders lifting with a lightness I hadn't felt in decades, and walked to my home office desk tucked in the corner of the living room. My laptop sat open, saved on a browser tab I'd visited countless times over the past 2 years, a listing for a quiet, oceanfront beach condo 3 hours south of my suburban home. It was a small, bright, cozy space with a private balcony, walking distance to the beach, local cafes, and quiet walking trails. It was everything I'd ever wanted for my retirement: peace, sunshine, quiet, and freedom from endless family demands. For years, I'd stared at this listing longingly, too guilty to book it, too afraid of letting Ethan down, too worried about leaving him to fend for himself. I'd always put his stability, his comfort, his dreams ahead of my own. But today, all that fear and guilt was gone. I was ready to stop waiting for him to grow up, stop enabling his entitlement, stop living my life for someone who would never appreciate my sacrifices. I clicked into the rental application, filling out every field slowly and carefully. I verified my income, submitted my background check, reviewed the lease terms, and confirmed my move-in date, the upcoming Friday, just 5 days away. I paid the security deposit, first month's rent, and utility setup fees in full, finalizing every detail of my new life. I booked a local moving company to transport my furniture and personal items, scheduled a deep clean for my suburban home to prepare it for long-term vacancy, and updated my forwarding address. By the time I closed my laptop, a profound, overwhelming sense of relief washed over me. The heavy weight of obligation that had sat on my chest for 30 years was finally gone. I was no longer a full-time banker, caretaker, and safety net for my adult son. I was finally going to live for me. Exactly 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. I knew it was Ethan before I even picked it up. His second message was flooded with indignation, victimhood, and unbridled entitlement, every word oozing with anger that I dared to deny his demands. "Are you serious? You're my mother. It's your job to support me and your grandbaby while I build my future. You're going to let us struggle just so you can be selfish?" I could easily picture him sitting on his couch in his air-conditioned home, his laptop closed, his work emails ignored, already daydreaming of travel and content creation, completely unbothered by the stable career he was abandoning. I knew exactly how his mind worked. He'd grown so used to me fixing every problem, covering every cost, and bailing him out of every irresponsible choice that he truly believed I was obligated to dedicate my entire retirement to his unproven dreams. I felt zero guilt, zero sympathy, zero urge to cave. I'd spent 30 years being a selfless, supportive mother. I'd raised him, educated him, clothed him, fed him, and bailed him out more times than I could count. My duty as a mother ended the day he became a fully independent adult. His dreams, his family, his career choices were no longer my burden to bear. I silenced my phone entirely, cutting off all incoming calls, texts, and notifications from Ethan, Mia, and any other family member who would try to guilt-trip me into submission. For the next 5 days, my only focus would be untangling every financial and emotional tie that had bound me to my son's irresponsible lifestyle. I opened my mobile banking app with steady, unwavering hands. First, I canceled the recurring monthly $1,500 transfer I'd set up years prior to cover their grocery and daycare costs. Next, I removed Ethan and Mia as authorized users from my secondary credit card, a card they'd used frivolously for dining out, shopping, and unnecessary luxury purchases every single month. I scrolled through my auto-pay settings and deleted every bill I'd been covering for them. Their cell phone plan, their streaming subscriptions, their car insurance premium, and their monthly utility backup payments. Every cancellation, every removal, every deleted auto-pay lifted a little more weight off my shoulders. For years, I'd drained my savings to fund their comfortable, stress-free lifestyle while I pinched pennies for myself. Now, my money would go toward my peace, my joy, my retirement, and my future. No more endless sacrifice. Minutes after I finished adjusting all my financial settings, my phone began ringing nonstop. Ethan's name flashed across the screen repeatedly, followed by Mia's. I sent every call straight to voicemail. I knew exactly what they wanted: to argue, to guilt trip, to manipulate me into reversing my choices, to demand I continue funding their lives. I had no desire to engage in their drama, no desire to defend my choices, no desire to waste my final days in my old home fighting with ungrateful adults. I turned away from my phone and began packing my personal belongings, moving slowly and intentionally. I folded my favorite casual clothes, my beachwear, my books, my decorative trinkets, and the family heirlooms Thomas and I had collected over our lifetime together. I packed the items that mattered to me, leaving behind the excess furniture and unused items that had cluttered my home for years. For so long, I'd packed for other people, for Ethan's birthdays, his moves, his family's needs. Today, I packed only for my own happiness. I'd barely filled my first suitcase when loud, insistent knocking erupted at my front door, sharp and demanding. The knocking didn't stop, fast, aggressive, and entitled, the exact energy Ethan had perfected over years of getting everything he wanted. I paused my packing, listening as his raised voice echoed through the solid wooden door. "Mom, open up. I know you're in there. Answer your phone right now." I wasn't surprised he'd rushed over. He'd always been impulsive, quick to anger, and desperate to fix any situation that disrupted his easy lifestyle. He'd never once had to face the consequences of his choices, and he couldn't fathom the idea that I would finally stop rescuing him. I walked calmly to the front door, pausing to glance through the peephole. Ethan stood on my front porch, his face flushed with anger, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. Mia stood beside him, her expression frustrated and judgmental, holding their sleeping toddler in her arms, clearly ready to use their child as a guilt tactic. They'd always weaponized my love for my grandbaby to force me into compliance, and today was no different. I unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the door open wide, my expression calm and unyielding. I refused to let their anger ruffle my peace, refused to fall for their familiar manipulation tactics. Ethan pushed past me immediately, storming into my living room without invitation, his shoes tracking dirt across my clean hardwood floors. "What is wrong with you?" he snapped, his voice loud and accusatory. "Why would you text me that? You're my mom. You're supposed to support me when I'm chasing my dreams." I closed the door gently behind them, maintaining my quiet composure. Supporting your dreams does not mean funding your entire family while you quit your stable job with no backup plan, Ethan. Support is encouragement, not lifelong financial servitude. Mia shifted uncomfortably, speaking up in a sharp, condescending tone. "It's not just his dream, it's our family's future. Social media content creation is a lucrative career if you stick with it. You're just old-fashioned and closed-minded. You're holding us back from success." I raised an eyebrow at her bold entitlement. Lucrative careers require consistent work, strategy, and patience. You two are not willing to put in the effort right now. You only want the reward without the sacrifice, and you expect me to pay for it. Ethan threw his hands up in the air, his temper flaring. "I'm burnt out. Sitting in an office 8 hours a day is draining. I'm young, I want to live, I want to travel, I want to build something for myself. Why can't you understand that? You have more than enough money saved up. You live alone in this huge house. You don't even spend your own retirement funds." "That money is for my future," I replied firmly, meeting his angry gaze without flinching. "It's for my peace, my travel, my healthcare, and my retirement lifestyle. It was earned by your father and me after a lifetime of hard work." It was never meant to fund your spontaneous career decisions. So you're just going to abandon us? Ethan shouted, his voice cracking with frustration. You're going to let your grandbaby struggle because you want to be selfish and live at the beach? That was his go-to move, every single time, weaponize my grandchild to make me feel guilty. For years, it had worked. I'd caved, paid up, and sacrificed my own needs to ensure my grandbaby had everything she needed. But this time, I saw right through his manipulation. Your daughter has two healthy, capable parents, I said steadily. Her stability is your responsibility, not mine. You chose to have a family. You chose to quit your job. You chose to chase an unproven dream. Every choice you make comes with consequences, and you can no longer pass those consequences off to me. Mia let out a loud, exaggerated huff, rolling her eyes dramatically. You're so cold now. Ever since Grandpa passed, you've turned into a completely different person. You used to be kind and generous. Now you just care about yourself. I used to be overly generous to a fault, I corrected her softly. I used to sacrifice every part of my life to make sure you two never had to struggle. That generosity only taught you both to be entitled and ungrateful. I'm done with that. I turned away from their furious faces and walked back to my suitcase, resuming my packing as if they weren't even in my home. Their anger, their complaints, their manipulation no longer held any power over me. Ethan stared at me in pure disbelief, stunned that I wasn't caving to his demands, wasn't apologizing, wasn't rushing to fix his problems. You're actually moving away? You're actually leaving us here to fend for ourselves? I'm moving to enjoy the retirement I've earned, I replied simply. I'm not leaving you to struggle. I'm leaving you to grow up. The second those words left my mouth, Ethan's phone pinged loudly in his pocket. He pulled it out quickly, his eyes scanning the screen, and his face instantly drained of all color. His jaw dropped open, and he stared at me in pure shock and rage. My credit card. It's declined. All my cards are locked. What did you do? I removed you and Mia from my authorized user accounts, I explained calmly, folding a soft sweater and placing it neatly in my suitcase. You no longer have access to my money or my credit. Are you kidding me right now? Ethan roared, raising his voice so loud the walls seemed to shake. We have bills due this week. Rent, daycare, car payment. We can't pay any of that without your help. You're ruining our lives. You've had years of stable income and my financial support to save for emergencies, I said. The fact that you have zero savings and no financial safety net is a result of your own poor planning, not my cruelty. You have a resume, work experience, and a stable work history. You can go back to work. You can pick up extra shifts. You can budget and cut unnecessary expenses like every other responsible family. Mia's eyes welled with fake tears, and she pulled my grandbaby tighter in her arms, rocking her back and forth dramatically. Look at what you're doing to your granddaughter. She's going to suffer because you're being stubborn and selfish. How can you live with yourself? I glanced at my sleeping grandchild, my heart softening for a split second, but my resolve did not waver. I loved my granddaughter more than anything, but loving her did not mean I had to enable her parents' irresponsibility. True love meant letting her parents learn to provide for her, not doing it for them forever. I'm not the one making her suffer, I said firmly. Her parents are. You two are the ones who chose to quit a stable income with no savings to fall back on. Don't blame your poor choices on me. Ethan's fake composure shattered completely. He began pacing my living room rapidly, ranting and raving about how unfair I was, how I'd ruined his life, how no other mother would ever treat their child this way. He threw every guilt trip in the book at me. I'd raised him wrong. I'd never supported his dreams. I'd loved him less than other parents loved their kids. I'd be lonely and regretful living alone at the beach. I listened quietly, continuing my packing, completely unfazed by his tantrum. I'd heard every one of these lines 100 times before. They no longer stung, no longer made me doubt myself, no longer filled me with guilt. Fine. Ethan snapped, finally stopping his pacing to glare at me. If you're going to be this heartless, we're moving in here. This house is half mine anyway. You can't just leave it empty while we struggle. We'll stay here rent-free, and you can still send us money from the beach. I shook my head firmly, my tone unnegotiable. This house is my private property, paid for entirely by your father and me. You have no legal or moral right to it. You will not move in, you will not stay here rent-free, and you will not receive another dollar from me. Ked to the front door and pulled it open wide, gesturing for them to leave. I have packing and moving preparations to finish. I'd like you both to leave my home now. Fuming and defeated, Ethan and Mia stormed out the door, muttering hateful comments and threats under their breath. Mia shot me one final icy glare before turning to walk to their car, and Ethan slammed my front door so hard the windows rattled. I twisted the deadbolt tight the second they were gone, locking out their drama, their entitlement, and their endless demands for good. For the next 4 days, I worked tirelessly to finalize my move, completely undistracted by guilt or doubt. I hired a trusted local property manager to oversee my suburban home while I was gone, laying out strict, non-negotiable rules. No unauthorized entry, no temporary residency for Ethan or his family, no exceptions for any reason. I stored my remaining furniture and sentimental items in a secure climate-controlled storage unit, updated my insurance policies, and finalized all paperwork for my beach condo lease. Ethan and Mia blew up my phone constantly over those 4 days, endless texts, missed calls, voice notes filled with anger, begging, and threats. They alternated between screaming at me for being selfish and pleading with me to send them one final payment, promising they'd get back on track soon. I ignored every single message, every call, every plea. I blocked their numbers entirely, cutting off all toxic communication. I knew exactly what would happen if I caved. They'd continue their lazy, irresponsible lifestyle, relying on me to fix their mistakes, never learning to stand on their own 2 feet. I'd spend my entire retirement funding their choices, sacrificing my peace for their comfort, with zero gratitude in return. Thursday evening, the night before my move, I received one final desperate message from Ethan, sent from a new unblocked number he'd used to bypass my restrictions. Mom, we're serious. Our rent is overdue, daycare is threatening to suspend our daughter's enrollment, and our car payment is past due. We have zero money left. If you don't help us tonight, we're going to lose everything. Don't do this to your family. I stared at the message for a long moment, feeling a flicker of sadness, not for their situation, but for the fact that my own son had grown so entitled, so unwilling to take responsibility for his life. Still, I did not reply. I did not cave. I did not sacrifice my future for his poor choices. Instead, I typed up a short, factual note with local resources, free family financial counseling services, temporary daycare assistance programs, local job placement agencies, and emergency rental relief funds available in their area. I sent him the list, no extra comments, no sympathy, no money. I gave him the tools to save himself, but I refused to save him myself. Early Friday morning, my moving truck arrived right on schedule. The crew loaded my suitcases, boxes, and personal items quickly and efficiently. I walked through my empty suburban home one last time, breathing in the quiet air, feeling no regret, no sadness, no guilt. This house had held decades of memories, joy, and love, but it had also held years of stress, sacrifice, and one-sided giving. I was ready for a new chapter. Just as I climbed into my car to follow the moving truck to the beach, I saw Ethan's car speeding down my street. He skidded to a stop behind my vehicle, jumping out and running toward me, his face frantic and desperate. Mia stayed in the car with their toddler, watching closely. Mom, wait. Please don't leave, he shouted, rushing to my car window as I rolled it down. We've figured it out. I'll scale back my content creation. I'll work part-time while I build my brand. Just stay and help us get through this rough patch. Don't abandon us. I looked him straight in the eyes, my tone calm and final. You don't need me to help you through anything, Ethan. You need to grow up, take responsibility for your family, and stop relying on me to fix every problem you create. I've spent 30 years taking care of you. Now I'm taking care of me. But what if we fail? He asked, his voice breaking, finally showing a glimmer of vulnerability instead of entitlement. Then you'll learn from it, I replied softly. Failure is how you grow. I've never let you fail, so you've never learned to survive on your own. It's time you learn. I rolled up my window before he could argue further, nodded at my driver, and we pulled away from the driveway. I watched my old home shrink in the rearview mirror, along with decades of endless sacrifice and obligation. For the first time in my entire life, I was free. The drive to the beach was peaceful and calm. When I pulled up to my new condo, I was greeted by soft ocean breezes, warm sunshine, and the distant sound of crashing waves. My new home was bright, airy, and peaceful, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, a cozy balcony perfect for morning coffee and evening sunsets, and quiet neighborhood streets free of drama and stress. For the next month, I lived a life I'd only ever dreamed of. I woke up early to watch the sunrise over the ocean, took daily walks along the sandy shore, explored local coastal shops and cafes, read books on my balcony, and connected with other retired neighbors who prioritized peace and self-care. I had no urgent texts, no frantic calls, no endless bills to pay for someone else. Every single day was mine to enjoy. 5 weeks after my move, I received a long, thoughtful email from Ethan, his first message to me since I'd blocked his number. No anger, no demands, no guilt trips, just honest reflection. Mom, I know I've been selfish, entitled, and ungrateful for years. After you left, we lost our apartment, fell behind on every bill, and had no choice but to face reality. I had to go back to my corporate job full-time, and I picked up weekend side work to pay off our overdue debts and back rent. Mia and I downsized to a small, affordable apartment close to our work and daycare. We've started budgeting, saving every month, and prioritizing our daughter's stability over our fleeting dreams. We've realized how much you sacrificed for us for decades, how many of your own dreams you put on hold just to make our lives easy. We don't blame you anymore. We understand why you left, why you set boundaries, why you chose yourself for once. We're finally growing up, and we're learning to provide for our family on our own. I hope you're enjoying your beach life, and I hope one day I can earn back your trust. Love, Ethan. I read his words slowly, a soft, peaceful smile spreading across my face. I'd always known Ethan was capable of growth and responsibility. He'd just never had to try, because I'd always shielded him from every consequence of his choices. My tough choice to walk away wasn't cruelty. It was the greatest gift I could ever give him, the gift of independence, accountability, and maturity. I did not reply to his email. I did not rush to reconnect, did not offer financial help, did not lift my boundaries. I simply archived the message and turned back to my ocean view, grateful for the peace I'd reclaimed. For so many years, I'd believed that being a good parent meant endless giving, endless sacrifice, endless self-denial. I'd thought love meant carrying your child's burdens forever, even when they were fully grown and capable of carrying their own weight. I'd thought setting boundaries meant being cold, selfish, or unloving. But I've learned the hardest and most vital lesson of parenthood. True love isn't enabling. True love isn't rescuing your adult child from every mistake. True love is letting them grow, letting them learn, letting them stand on their own 2 feet while you finally live the life you've spent a lifetime earning. Sometimes the bravest, kindest, most loving choice a parent can make is to look their adult child in the eye and say firmly, "This is not my responsibility." Then walk away, reclaim your peace, and build the joyful life you deserve. Have you ever had to set hard boundaries with an entitled adult child or family member, even when it meant facing guilt and judgment from others? Have you ever had to choose your own peace over the endless demands of the people you love? I would love to read your brave, honest stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever struggled with family obligation, self-sacrifice, or the fear of being labeled selfish for choosing yourself, please hit the like button and subscribe for more honest stories about boundaries, self-respect, growth, and choosing your own happiness. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.